Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, there we go. Good afternoon.
We hear you on Zoom, but we can't see you on the video.
Do you need to see me on the video? Okay, there we go.
There, now we can see you. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We will call our meeting to order, and welcome to the Forward Pinellas board meeting for February. We have board members here in the room, but we do have some staff, presenters, and members of the public who will be joining us via Zoom today. At this time, if those in the room would please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Commissioner Long will lead us with both of those. Commissioner Long.
Dear Lord, here we are today to conduct the business of the Forward Pinellas Board on behalf of our citizens, our communities, where we all live, work, and pray. We ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the wonders of our community. Fill us with grace, Lord, as we make decisions that affect us all. Continue to remind us that we are here to do the people's work, and that I'm so sorry, please forgive me. That we are here to do the people's work and further the future of this beautiful paradise you have given us and which we all love so much. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just a reminder for recording purposes that when you speak, to hit the button and to shut it off when you're done. Before we move on with the agenda, we will have our process coordinator, Tina Jablon, outline the procedures that will be followed for public comment today. Tina, will you please run through the procedures?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take the next few minutes to review the process that has been devised for this meeting. There will be a technology moderator and a process coordinator for this meeting who will be tasked with facilitating the in-person and Zoom portions of the meeting. The technology moderator will be Sarah Caper, Principal Planner with Forward Pinellas, and she will be facilitating the Zoom portions of the meeting. The process coordinator will be myself, Tina Jablon, Executive Administrative Secretary for Forward Pinellas, and I will be facilitating the in-person portions of the meeting. Any person may be heard by the Forward Pinellas Board for not more than 3 minutes on any proposition before the board unless such time is modified by the chair. The options and methods for doing so will be explained in a moment. To ensure an accurate record of the meeting, when addressing the board, the member of the public must first state and spell his or her name, state his or her address, and announce what agenda item they will be speaking to. Throughout the meeting, we ask that all presenters and commenters identify themselves by name each time they speak unless they have been introduced or specifically called on by name. Additionally, please be mindful not to speak over one another. Prior to a vote on any matter, the chair will seek public comment. The chair will inquire of the process coordinator if there are any members of the public physically present in the room wishing to address the board. The process coordinator will alert the board to the number of persons who have signed into the meeting and requested to speak on the item. Each person will be given 3 minutes to address the board or time as modified appropriately by the chair. Next, the chair will refer to the technology moderator in Zoom, who will ask for a virtual hand raising of all those in Zoom wishing to speak on an item. The number of hands will be noted and reported to the chair. The technology moderator will unmute each speaker in turn in order that is shown in Zoom, allowing each speaker 3 minutes or time as modified by the chair for all speakers. Finally, the chair may seek more information from Forward Pinellas staff, the presenter, or other sources before entering a motion and vote. The majority of Forward Pinellas staff and presenters will be participating virtually via Zoom today. We ask that everyone please silence their cell phones and other noise-making devices and ask that presentations be allowed to finish in their entirety prior to any questions or comments. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We're going to continue with citizens to be heard. Tina, are there any members of the public in the room who wish to speak? This is regarding any items that are not already on the agenda for action by the board today.
Madam Chair, there are no people in the room wishing to speak for citizens to be heard today.
And Sarah, are there any members of the public in Zoom?
Any members of the public wishing to address the board, please use the raised hand button in Zoom or press *9 on the phone if you're calling in. There are no members of the public wishing to speak on this.
Okay, thank you, very well. So section 4, the consent agenda. Do any board members wish to pull any items from the consent to be handled individually? Any comments? Okay, seeing none. Sarah, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent agenda?
Any members of the public wishing to speak on the agenda, please, if you're in Zoom, use the raise hand button or press *9 on the phone. There is no one in the room or in Zoom wishing to speak on this.
Move approval.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second, and I see no questions or comments. Oh,
I didn't get the second.
who made the second?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Vice Mayor Alberton. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that moves on unanimously. We will now move into the public hearing section of our agenda, and we will first hear the MPO public hearings, followed by the PPC. So section 5A, this is a proposed modification to fiscal year 2020-21 through 2024-25. It's our transportation improvement program. We are joined today by Jared Austin to give us a presentation on this item. Good afternoon,
Yes,
Jared.
good afternoon. And hello, everyone. As stated, my name is Jared Austin. I'll be walking through a modification to the current transportation improvement program. So as some of you may know, Forward Pinellas receives federal and state grant funds through the Florida Department of Transportation on a 2-year Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP cycle. All of the associated funds within our UPWP are also reflected within our currently adopted Transportation Improvement Program. Recently, the Florida Department of Transportation announced that for the Federal Transit Administration FTA Section 5305 grant for fiscal year 2021, its match will be a 20% soft match instead of a 10% hard match, as it was done in previous years. So this is resulting in a net impact on the Forward Pinellas budget and a reduction of available funds by about $120,000 for fiscal year 2021. Now, this already came to you all in the form of a UPWP amendment last month. However, again, because UPWP funds are represented in the Transportation Improvement Program, we have to go through a modification process just to adjust those numbers so that the numbers are accurately, the adjusted numbers are accurately reflected in both the UPWP and the Transportation Improvement Program. So highlighted in red here in fiscal year 2021, these are the before numbers reflected in the Transportation Improvement Program. And in red here are the after numbers reflected in the Transportation Improvement Program. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you all have on this item. And yeah, that concludes my presentation.
Councilmember Gabbard.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, pull this closer.
Jared, can you just explain, just so I make sure I'm clear, on the difference between a soft match and a hard match? I just want to make sure I understand that verbiage.
Yeah, that I'll actually defer to on Whit. I know he's explained this pretty thoroughly to a few of our different groups now.
So a hard match is a cash match, and a soft match is, in this case, they're using toll revenue credits to provide the local or the state's match of that revenue. And the way it works for us is we are reimbursed for all the charges we incur. So every quarter, we submit an invoice to the Department of Transportation for a reimbursement in cash. So when it's a soft match, that amount is just lowered. We can't get reimbursed by a soft match.
Got it, got it. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
That was my question as well. Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion for approval?
Second.
And so we have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. So Tina?
Mayor Bujalski?
Excuse me, we need to do public comment on this.
Thank you. Sarah, do we have any questions from the public who wish to address this item?
Any members of the public wishing to address this item, if you are in Zoom, please raise your hand in Zoom or press *9 on the phone. We have no one wishing to speak on this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Seeing no other comments or questions, Tina, can we move to do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Noble? Commissioner Gerard?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Albritton?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggers? Councilmember Gabbard? Commissioner Seal? Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Long? Yes. And Chair Rice?
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to now move into the PPC public hearings, which will be conducted as follows. I will first ask Forward Pinellas staff to present the item. Applicant local governments are available in Zoom for questions as needed. Once each presentation is given, I will then ask for proponents of the proposal to speak, then opponents, and finally, any other citizens who wish to comment or ask questions of the case. We will then hear rebuttal by the applicant as necessary and a staff response or summary. At that time, the board can ask questions, and I will close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate and take action. So we will move forward with item 5B1, case CW 21-04, the City of Largo, and the presentation is from Nushin Rahman.
My name is Nushin Rahman, planning analyst at Forward Pinellas. The case I am presenting today is CW 2104, submitted by the City of Largo. The city seeks to amend a property from the public semi-public category to the office category, and the purpose of the proposed amendment is to allow for the use of the existing building as general offices intended for private use. The subject property is located at 6021 142nd Avenue North with an area size of approximately 7.39 acres. It is currently used as administrative offices for St. Petersburg College, with surrounding uses including commercial retail uses and single-family residential homes. The following is an image of the front of the subject property, followed by an image of the single-family residential homes that I mentioned before, located to the north of the subject property. And lastly, examples of the commercial retail uses located to the west of the subject property. The map in front of you portrays the current countywide plan map category of public, semi-public, with its permitted uses listed in front of you. The next slide shows the same map, but the density and intensity standards for the public, semi-public category listed in front of you. As mentioned before, the building is currently used as administrative offices for St. Petersburg College. However, the college is in the process consolidation and has found that they do not have a use for the existing offices, which are mostly vacant, are therefore selling to a private owner for general office use intended for that private use. However, general offices are not a allowable primary use under the public semi-public category, hence the proposed amendment to the office category, which is shown on the map in front of you here, along with the permitted uses for the office category listed in front of you. Similarly, the next slide shows the same map, but with the density and intensity standards for the office category. To conclude, the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics for the office category. And on balance, it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in Section 6531 of the countywide rules. And in front of you are those relevant considerations. And lastly, there were no public comments received for this case, concluding my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nusheen. So first I will ask for any proponents wishing to be heard. Sarah, are there any proponents in the room or in Zoom who wish to speak?
Any proponents in Zoom, please raise your hand at this time using the raise hand button or *9 on the phone. There are no proponents in the room or in Zoom at this time.
Okay, now we'll ask if there are any opponents wishing to be heard. Sarah, are there any opponents in the room or in Zoom who wish to be heard?
Any opponents in Zoom, please use the raise hand button in Zoom or *9 on the phone at this time. There are no opponents in the room or in Zoom.
Okay, thank you. And we will ask if there's any other citizens wishing to speak on this item. Sarah, are there any citizens in the room or in Zoom who wish to speak?
Any citizens in Zoom who wish to speak on this item, please use the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on the phone at this time. There is nobody in the room or in Zoom wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we will close the public hearing. And now we'll go to the board if there's any questions or comments from Forward Pinellas board members. I do not see any hands or any lights, so I will hear a motion to approve this amendment to the countywide plan map.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I heard Councilmember Gabbard, and as a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you from the Vice Mayor. We don't need to do a roll call for this vote, correct? So all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, that's unanimous, and we will move on to our next item. Item 6A is the PSTA activities report that will be given by Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. The PSTA board met on January 27th. We have welcomed 4 new board members and 2 returning board members over the last couple of meetings, so we had a brief orientation. And of course, more than half of the Forward Pinellas board used to serve on PSTA. If they don't currently, many of us do. We also talked about a sustainable strategic plan focusing on social, economic, and environmental sustainability, and environmental aspects of the plan consider clean energy, air quality impacts, water usage, and waste. And we're aiming for gold recognition from the American Public Transportation Association, or APTA. To top that off, earlier this month, we accepted and unveiled our next 4 all-electric vehicles, making ours the biggest electric fleet in the state. We also have the only wireless conductor charger on the East Coast of the United States. Related to COVID, we are increasing frequency and peak times for some vehicles that are back at capacity, and we need to, when they get at capacity, they have to send another bus out. And we'll do this till the end of the fiscal year or whenever social distancing is no longer a problem. Hopefully someday. In addition, we're back to normal operating schedules this week. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Gerard? Okay, thank you. We will move on to 6B, the T-BARDA activities report. Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The T-BARDA Board met on Friday, January 22nd at the Bradenton Area Convention Center. Unfortunately, there were no actions taken due to lack of a quorum. This makes, we have not been able to take action at the T-BARDA Board since October because of lack of quorum, which is a huge issue for this board. Secondly, the governor has yet to fulfill, it's been 2 years since we've had vacancies on the board that the governor has not filled. He just reappointed our chair, Jim Holton, last Friday, and then I think you know, because I made a report at the legislative committee meeting just before this one, that Senator Brandes has filed a bill in the Senate to completely wipe out T-BARDA from statute, which is problematic because that puts our region behind now for decades if that bill were to make it through the process. It does not have a House companion, but when you're going to abolish a statute, you don't need to have a House companion. So I'm not sure how far he'll get. Senator Roussan has a bill relating to T-BARDA, and it has some fixes in it for some of the issues that we have right now. He was going to go down and talk to Senator Brandes about what his problem is. So stay tuned. More to come on that front. That's the end of my report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Long. And Whit, did you want to comment on this issue right now or wait till like a more comprehensive legislative update, or might make sense to go ahead and talk about it now?
I think we can just talk about it briefly right now. We certainly are trying to gather more information about the motivations behind this. I think one of the concerns that we have is that T-BARDA was set up to be sort of the honest broker of regional transportation in the area. And, you know, it makes it easier to have an agency that can focus on regional transportation, particularly transit now that they've refined their focus. And so it is a bit concerning when we had a friendly bill that we were working to improve, and now we have this hostile bill. So I think we need to wait and see how it gets some traction and what kind of discussions happen around it. The bill would distribute their assets, which are fairly substantial, to the transit agencies and other planning organizations in the region, so it's unclear how that would happen. The sunset for T-BARDA would be 2022, so it does provide some time, I guess, for those things to be figured out. But I think it's, you know, it's a testament to the failure of the legislature to create a sustainable funding mechanism for T-BARDA, and every year they have to go kind of hat in hand to the local governments for funding support and to the legislature for funding support. And that's not a sustainable model. So I kind of understand why we are where we are, and we're hopeful that we can get it resolved.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Moving on to 6C, the Memorandum of Understanding for the I-4 Coalition. This is an action item, and we'll hear a presentation from Chelsea Favreau.
All right, good afternoon, board members. I'm Chelsea Favreau with Ford Pinellas staff. I'm here today to talk to you about what we're calling the MidCentral Florida Corridor Coalition. So really the purpose of this coalition is to focus on what is referred to as TSMO, that's Transportation Systems Management and Operations. And really the goal behind that really lengthy acronym is managing the efficiency of the transportation network using existing resources. Really, what can we do to maximize efficiency without having to add travel lanes, basically? This could include incident management, such as the road rangers clearing the roadways more quickly after some kind of incident to get traffic moving again. It could be signal coordination. As many of you know, we've already been doing that in Pinellas County for quite some time. So it would be really enhancing those systems and also working with other local governments along the I-4 corridor to coordinate on that. It could be work zone management. We do have a lot of construction going on now and a lot more planned in the next 5 to 10 years. So really managing that construction to make sure that the transportation network continues to flow, as well as special event and weather management. And it's also an internal culture. We've talked to other MPOs and counties along the I-4 corridor, and not all of them have the kind of culture that we do here in Pinellas County, where if there is some kind of traffic issue, we often look, okay, could we do something with signal timing? Is there maybe a turn lane enhancement or something more operational? So it's also really promoting that internal culture to look at other ways aside from just widening roadways to manage our mobility. So the purpose of this coalition is to really recognize the importance of the I-4 corridor. We're all impacted by the functionality of the corridor. While I-4 doesn't technically touch Pinellas County, we are at the end of it, and there are a lot of people that commute along the corridor to get into Pinellas County. There's a lot of tourism that moves up and down the corridor to access the county. And then how can we share information, data, and lessons learned amongst all of the partners along the corridor to help manage mobility? We would really like to focus on maintaining agency autonomy. The purpose of this isn't to come in and have Orlando tell Hillsborough what to do or us tell someone on the other coast what to do, but really just to share resources, work together, and formalize that coordination so that we have a mechanism in place. MetroPlan Orlando is going to be leading this effort. They did receive a state grant to help fund the activities. That grant was about $100,000. So they're going to be leading this work just to get all of the different MPOs and counties together to work towards formalizing that agreement to implement those kinds of strategies along the corridor. We did lay out a number of goals for this coalition, and these will be formalized later. But right now, it's really just focusing on coordination and support, working with the other MPOs and TPOs in Central Florida, helping each other out to cultivate that culture at each of the MPOs, and also showcasing the benefits of exercising these at the mega region level. And then we also talked about utilizing lessons learned from other corridor coalitions. A lot of the major interstates across the United States have similar coalitions. For example, I-95, all the way up from Maine down through to Florida. All of those local governments work together to share data and strategies and best practices. So we want to speak with all of them to really figure out what are some of those lessons learned and how can they be applied here in Florida. So for our next steps, we are asking that each MPO is being asked to sign on to a memorandum of understanding. So we're going to be finalizing those goals and objectives that I just touched on in the next couple of weeks. And then we're also going to be identifying ways to address equity in the implementation of any transformative technologies that may be applied along the corridors. We're going to start implementation by establishing a working group of the staff of each of the MPOs along the I-4 corridor. And then we'll be bringing back regular updates to each of the MPOs and the regional entities like the MPOs Chairs Coordinating Committee, for example. So today we're asking for your permission to authorize with the executive director to sign the MOU once it is finalized. There is no financial commitment on behalf of Forward Pinellas for this effort. We really just want to be able to basically, bring together and formalize the collaborations that we can work together to share this data and these processes along the corridor. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. Do we have any questions from the board on this item? I have a couple of questions, but I'll go to you first, Commissioner Eggers.
No, well, first of all, I just wanted to say that, obviously this a major corridor in Florida, but also, and more importantly, the connection between the Tampa Bay region and Orlando. I think this is critically important to elevate common discussion among all the partners that are along there. I think it's a great idea. I would vote no under traffic signal coordination. I hope we don't have any traffic signals on I-4. But I don't know what that really had to do with this. But nonetheless, I do think this is a great opportunity to have some conversation, because there are a lot of things that we're talking about. We were talking about that. I'm trying to think of the name of the group that was going to do a rail system along I-4. What was the name of the group? Virgin? Was it Virgin? I don't remember the name of it.
Started out as All Aboard Florida and became Virgin.
Yeah,
and Bright Line.
Yeah, Bright Lines, I think, something along that line. But I think it would be a great place to have some of that conversation, what the issues are, what the pitfalls might be. So anyway, I'm supportive of it, so I think we should move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could just address the question about the signal coordination, just think of this as a corridor and not a roadway. So there are parallel roads to I-4, there are feeder routes that come into it. And in some cases, they can contribute to congestion on I-4. For instance, if traffic is backing up on an off-ramp to go into the Lake Buena Vista Disney World area and backs up onto the main line, that might be a signal coordination issue on the local surface street, not on I-4. And this kind of technology and approach would help address some of those issues too. So just a little clarity there.
Thank you.
So, Chelsea, this seems like this MOU would allow us to coordinate more basically on things dealing with congestion management.
Yes, yeah, it's primarily based on congestion, not just recurring during rush hour, but also incidents and special events and things like that.
And I'm just curious, this doesn't seem to have anything to do with addressing the actual response from emergency vehicles or public safety vehicles to incidents. This is purely a traffic approach.
No, this could also address some of that incident management that you talked about, like the road rangers. We could look at clearance times, helping provide additional data to speed up the time that it takes emergency responders to get to a scene and then clear that scene. So it would address it in that manner.
Okay, good. And in terms of evacuating a part of the state in the event of a hurricane, we already have policies and things in place to anticipate that kind of larger movement of evacuating citizens. Would this kind of fall into that, replace it, or what does that look like?
This would be complementary to that and hopefully enhance it. The weather management is one thing that came up. We could also look at additional coordination of those dynamic message signs that you see across the interstate system and also now onto the local network. So we'd hopefully like to have a fully interconnected system that could work for such things as hurricane evacuation as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments from our board members? Seeing none, Sarah, are there any members of the public in the room or in Zoom who wish to speak to the MOU?
Any members of the public wishing to address the board in Zoom, please use the raised hand button in Zoom at this time, or press star 9 if you're calling in on the phone. There is nobody in the room or in Zoom wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, and the action item today is to authorize our Executive Director, Whit Blanton, to write and execute the final version of the Memorandum of Understanding for the I-4 Coalition. Do I hear a motion to approve? Okay, I heard Councilmember Gabbard, and who was second? Commissioner Gerard. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you. That's unanimous, and we will move on to the next item. Item 6D, Complete Streets. It's our grant program awards, and our presentation today is from Angela Ryan of Forward Pinellas. Hi, Angela.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today to discuss the Complete Streets program. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. And I'm sure this is a reminder for most of you, but we are in our 5th year of implementing the Complete Streets program, whereby we have provided up to $400,000 so far. This will be the 5th year. $1,000 for concept planning projects and $1 million each year, and totaling $4 million in the past, and now we're up to $5 million for construction projects. The intent of these projects is to leverage transportation funding to bring about transformative land use. And that really means that we're creating streets that are livable, walkable, safe for all users, all modes of transportation. Next slide, please. Thank you. And we had a call for projects that went out this summer. And following that, we developed a subcommittee comprised of several members of different Forward Pinellas committees that work for some of the municipalities here in Pinellas County, as well as some Forward Pinellas staff. Our subcommittee reviewed 3 applications that were received, 2 for concept planning and 1 for construction project. And I'm going to briefly provide an overview of each application. The first application that we received for concept planning was for the city of Tarpon Springs. And this project is along Diston Avenue. It's actually a 1.9-mile project. And many of you have seen that Belcher and Diston in North County has a 0.2-mile gap, a small gap. This project, in addition to creating a complete streets concept, would propose plans for how to fill that gap. The project itself is within the Union Academy area in Tarpon Springs, which is a historic African-American settlement that people used for living while they're working for the sponging and the lumber industry. As such, it is a really important historic area. It does directly abut a community redevelopment area. And the city has an incredible amount of support. They do have a $68,000 match that they have provided in association with this application. The overall plan is to provide a multimodal access road, which provides access for people to social, faith-based, commercial, and community institutions within Tarpon Springs. Some elements of the project would include, of course, sidewalks, lighting, and enhanced crossing areas and crosswalks. This project was selected as the concept planning recipient by the subcommittee, and today we'll be asking at the end of my presentation for the board's review and approval of this recommendation. Next slide, please. And the city of St. Petersburg provided an excellent application. Although it was not recommended by the subcommittee, they did provide a very thorough application and proposal to create a 6th Street bikeway. And they did not have a specific match, but indicated in the application that they would provide resources as required. The real purpose of this project is to provide a comfortable bike lane and comfortable bike facilities for this portion of 6th Street. This project actually connects to a previous Complete Streets project award from the past. This project area is located within a minority and low-income environmental justice area. The project, again, would develop a safe roadway configuration and bikeway. The project purpose here is multifaceted in regards to providing links to Rosier Park and Mirror Lake through downtown St. Petersburg, as well as connections to Pinellas Trail. And like I indicated, the planned 6th Avenue South bikeway that is also located in St. Pete and was awarded a previous Complete Streets grant award. The project also has a connection for plan to Sunrunner. So great project. The other project the subcommittee chose as being the award recipient based on the individual merits of each project. Next slide, please. And this was our only construction application this year. It was a phenomenal application. The city of St. Petersburg did a really great job of putting together the facts surrounding their application for 22nd Street South for a project ranging from 11th Avenue South to 18th Avenue South. Something to highlight here is that this is within the Warehouse Arts District Deuces Live Joint Action Plan area and redevelopment area. The project itself would be really the corridor that would provide important access for the commercial and residential areas, as well as educational and institutional along 22nd Street South. Like I've indicated, there's a mixture of land uses. This project is also in a minority and environmental justice area and is within the City of St. Petersburg CRA. The project itself would provide local trail and bike lane connections, and the design specifics include making the street more walkable and safe for again, all users. And to do that, they have developed a wide sidewalk that would be used by pedestrians for shopping, walking to school, walking to work, etc., as well as on-road cyclist use with sharrows, and they're also associating this project with lowering the speed limit on the road. The project also includes pedestrian crossings as well as a new bus stop location, landscape amenities, as well as are included in the project, such as lighting. This project was recommended for the full $1 million from the subcommittee. Next slide, please. Next steps. Thank you for having me today. We would like to request your approval of these two recommendations from the subcommittee. Should you today decide that these projects are approved, July 1st, the Concept Planning Award would be available to the City of Tarpon Springs, and St. Pete's construction project would tentatively be added to the FDOT work program for 2026. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or concerns?
Thank you for the presentation, Angela. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, the Tarpon Springs application, I'm assuming, because it was applied for by them, that it's the extension of Belcher, but it's in the city. So they'll be doing the work with the residents in that community and being sensitive to the issues that they may raise as far as the design of that road eventually.
Yes, sir, you are absolutely correct. The application provided an emphasis on creating a context-sensitive design, and to do that, they will indeed be working with the community as well as specific community stakeholders to ensure that the project retains the existing character and the culture of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela, on the construction grant for 22nd Street South in St. Petersburg, first of all, thank you. Our citizens have been really focused on this area for a long time. And this is just a really nice way to kind of come full circle, because this was a traditional African-American neighborhood in our city that was really displaced by the introduction of the interstate system. So it's interesting to be here now today and working on this and bringing this community back. Quick question. I see it described as 22nd Street South going from 11th Avenue to 18th Avenue South, and I see in other areas it's described as going from 11th to 15th Ave. Could you clarify that, please?
Yes, indeed. You know, there's a high amount of reconfiguration occurring at the 15th Avenue South intersection, because that's that gateway to the Deuces Main Street area. So there's been an emphasis on really improving that intersection. But the lateral limits of the project are indeed from 11th Avenue to 18th Avenue South.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And any other comments or questions before we move to taking a vote? And on this vote, we can approve both of these project awards together. Seeing no comments from the board, we'll move to taking questions from the public. Sarah, are there any members of the public in Zoom? I think I do see someone here in the room with us who wishes to speak. Tina, will you?
Anyone in
Organize
Zoom
that.
wishing to speak? Anyone in Zoom wishing to speak on this item, please use the raise hand button or press *9 on the phone. There is no one in Zoom wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, we do have someone here with us who'd like to speak. Mr. Guy, hello.
Yes, hi. I guess I'm getting too old. All this technology scares me. I want to thank you for that decision. Our organization got started almost a year ago, working to try to develop some ways to bring attention on a favorable basis to the 22nd Street corridor. We believe that that street was and should be in the future, regardless of what happens with the redevelopment of the Tropicana field. That is the main street of the heart of the Deuces. And it's going to take a while, but we believe that with certain approaches that have been done in other cities, we can connect the shopping arts district all the way down through the Deuces to Holmes Park, Del Holmes Park, and the Boyd Hill Preserve, and create ultimately a new tourism market for the St. Pete area, which is the urban ecotourism market. Some of the consultants have told us, we're not paying them, they're volunteering their time because it's such an interesting project to them, that has the potential of becoming the Central Park relationship to New York City. And so this is a very important first step to provide that. And so we really thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us today and being a part of this important project in St. Petersburg. I'll entertain a motion to approve the grant awards as recommended. I hear a motion from Commissioner Long and a second from Commissioner Gerard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Angela. Our next item is item 6E, our safety performance measures and targets. This is an action item as well. And our presentation is from Chelsea Favreau.
All right, thank you. So today we're going to talk about safety performance measures and targets. Transportation safety has always been a concern in Pinellas County for quite a few years. It's so much of a known issue. You know, as at Ford Pinellas, we kicked off the Safe Streets Pinellas activities within this past year. And through that, we identified what you see up here is the high injury network. And these are the locations throughout Pinellas County with repeated injury and fatality crashes. And you can see that it's pretty widespread. So the safety issues are not new to Pinellas County. They're not new to really anywhere in the nation. And for this reason, a number of years ago, Federal Highway put out this requirement that all MPOs address a number of performance measures, a number of them of which address safety. So as the MPO for Pinellas County, Ford Pinellas is required to address these measures with 2-year targets. And then we evaluate them on an annual basis and see, what direction we're going towards in relation to these 5 that you see up on the screen. I will point out there are no penalties if we do not attain the targets that we set. However, every year we do have to put forward a report and document the progress that we're making towards the targets that we set, and also show the nexus between the projects that we move into the Transportation Improvement Program and the progress that we want to make towards those targets. I will note that all of the measures, and we're going to walk through each one of these individually, they are calculated on a 5-year rolling average. And that's to really keep, if we have 1 year where there's a lot of crashes that are really bad, say for bicyclists, but it's really out of the norm, it's to really kind of give you that annual average so that the outliers aren't totally throwing off the data. So this is the process that we encounter each year for setting the performance measures for these safety targets. The Florida Department of Transportation, they set a target for the statewide. And then the MPOs have 6 months to decide if they want to support the FDOT target or if we'd like to set our own. And then we continuously evaluate that and measure that progress towards the targets annually. I will say that we have been given guidance from Federal Highway that, while we can just support a statewide target, that's fine. They did advise that we should consider setting targets that are achievable, that we can document progress towards. So last year in August, FDOT declared that all of those 5 safety targets statewide the goal or the target is going to be 0 for calendar year 2021. This is normal. DOT has set the target at 0 for the last few years, ever since we started doing this. But at Fort Pinellas, we've always decided to not support the statewide target, but to set our own. While we all agree that the goal should be 0 deaths and serious injuries on our network, we did want to set targets that were achievable and that we could show progress towards. So up here on the screen in this green column, this shows the progress that we've made since last year, since our last 5-year average reporting period. And you'll see a lot of negative numbers. Our numbers, we actually came down in each one of these performance areas. I will note there is a 1-year lag in the data. So this is the 2015 to 2019 period. So this does not account for any traffic impacts that were associated with COVID last year. But despite that reduction in traffic last year, we did see decreases overall. The blue column to the right, that shows the percent change since the 09 to 13, and that's when we first started tracking these changes. So this one fluctuates a little bit more. We have seen an overall increase in the last several years in our average annual fatalities, but decreases in our serious injuries. This chart here shows the average annual fatalities, and you'll see that there was a very slow but steady climb over the last several years. But then when we went into the 2015 to 19 reporting period, we did see a dip down. So it was about a 1.4% decrease. That's a very positive trajectory, and hopefully we can keep seeing this movement going forward. When it came to the rate of fatalities, and these are fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, so we want to make sure that we're not just looking at number of crashes, but also how many vehicles are on the roadways as well. So that's how we get to our rate. And we also saw a decrease in that in this last reporting period, despite a continuous climb the years prior. When we look at number of serious injuries, and this is where we've seen that steady decline. And we've also, all the other MPOs in the state of Florida generally are seeing very similar trends, especially when it's normalized for vehicle miles traveled. It's a steady decline. This could be attributed to a number of things. Vehicles may be getting safer. If congestion goes up, vehicle speeds goes down, so crashes tend to be less severe. There are a number of factors that go into this, but it is very positive to see that we've seen over a 5% decrease in these crashes over time. And then the rate of serious injuries, again, when normalized by vehicle miles traveled, has also decreased over 7% this past year. So when we look at bicycle and pedestrian serious injuries and fatalities, these are lumped together per federal highway guidance. You'll see it's a little bit all over the place. You know, we saw a steady increase, then it went down, then it went up, then it went down. So this, we don't really see a whole lot of a really consistent trend, but seeing that decrease from 218 to 215 year over year, that is a positive sign. So what our recommendation is as staff is we are recommending that we restate the goal, that the goal should be 0 fatalities on the transportation network. We should all strive to that. However, when we set these targets, we would like to set achievable targets. So the target right here in the middle, the 2020 targets, those are the same targets that this board approved in 2019 and in 2020. So we are recommending that we keep these targets. The percentages that you see on the right-hand side of the screen, that's how far off we are from that target today. We know that we still have progress to make to get to those targets, and we're recommending that instead of continuously moving the goalpost, we keep it steady so that we can keep tracking our progress being made towards those targets over time. The way that we got to these targets in 2019 is a very complicated formula. Basically, we looked at 5 years of data, and we looked at the lowest year and the highest year for each of these numbers. And then we looked at the difference in between and applied that difference to the data, and that's how we got to those numbers. So that's why you'll see average annual fatalities, 97.4. We got to that 0.4 decimal because of the methodology we used to get there. So that's all I have for you today. I'm happy to ask any questions, but ultimately we are going to be looking for approval of the Ford Pinellas board for the safety performance measures and targets.
Thank you, Chelsea. And we'll start with Whit.
Thank you. Just to put this in a little bit of context, we're not just hoping that fatalities and serious injuries go down. Hope's not really a good plan. We do have a Safe Streets Pinellas action plan that we'll be bringing forward to the board for adoption, I believe in March. With that will be a resolution to support our Vision Zero goal with a horizon year of 2045, which is our long-range transportation plan horizon year. But that Vision Zero action plan that you'll see next month has a series of strategies and action items that we will be asking you to approve as a menu of tools that we can use in partnership with the Florida Department of Transportation, PSTA, and all of our local governments in Pinellas County. And it will take collective action to achieve those targets. So I just wanted to put that context behind what Chelsea presented today.
Thank you. And other board member questions, discussions? Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, Chelsea, just curious on the, so we're so proud of all of our network of trails and everything. Do you have information on these categories as it relates to, trail intersections with roads and throughout the county, and how that's trending as well? And could we get that information?
We can pull that up for you. I know we did run an analysis earlier in 2020 to look at bicycle crashes specifically related to the trail. And what we saw was that there really wasn't any kind of statistical difference. We didn't see an extraordinary number of crashes related to the trail versus elsewhere. For bicycles and pedestrians, where we tend to see the most crashes are in areas where the facilities are not sufficient, not where there's a trail crossing. But we'll be happy to pull that data for you.
Okay, and you don't see any worsening or improvement on the trail itself?
No real changes. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no hands. Sarah, do we have any members of the public in the room or in Zoom who wish to address the board?
Anyone in Zoom wishing to address the board, please use the raise hand button in Zoom at this time or press *9 on the phone. We have no one in the room or Zoom wishing to address the board on this item.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear a motion to approve the safety performance measures and targets. Commissioner Gerard, and second from Commissioner Eggers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We will move on to our next item, which is 6F, and this is amendments to the Pinellas County Truck Route Plan, and this is an action item as well. And we'll hear a presentation from Chelsea Favreau.
All right, thank you. So as for Pinellas, being that we do countywide planning, we do maintain the Pinellas County Truck Route Plan. And this includes the truck routing, as you can see up here on the screen, all of the roadways in Pinellas County that are designated for either unrestricted movement of trucks or trucks that are restricted to daytime only movements. Now, this doesn't mean that a truck cannot travel on other roads. The way that the ordinances are written is that a truck must travel on a designated truck route until it gets to the point closest to its destination, and then it can turn off to access the destination where it needs to make deliveries. So what's before you today is this stretch of roadway right here. This is in Kenneth City. We received a request from the town of Kenneth City and also through Pinellas County, since this is a Pinellas County road, to consider removing the truck route designation from 58th Street between 38th Avenue North and 62nd Avenue North. This is, like I said, a Pinellas County maintained roadway. There really of areas along this roadway that would need deliveries from large trucks, aside from at the intersections where there are already truck routes. But the roadway is very, very narrow, and there's concern from the residents that the large trucks coming through that corridor would pose a safety risk. So we brought this through our technical coordinating committee to get input from the county, the cities, especially the city of St. Petersburg, since this truck route does bump right up against city limits. The technical coordinating committee voted to approve the amendment to remove this from the truck routing plan. So as a final step, we're bringing this to the Forward Pinellas Board for your review, comment, and action today.
Okay, thank you very much, Chelsea. Any questions or comments about the Pinellas County truck route plan through Kenneth City? Okay. Sarah, do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board?
Any members of the public in Zoom who wish to address the board, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on the phone if you're calling in. We have no one in the room or in Zoom wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll hear a motion to approve the amendment to the truck route plan.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor, and a second from Commissioner Gerard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, that passes unanimously. And this meeting seems to be moving along at a pretty nice pace, so don't take that as a hint, Whit. But we'll turn it over to Whit Blanton for the director's report.
Now prepare for my master's thesis on transportation planning. No, I'll be quick. From the spotlight update that I want to share with you, very briefly, we are continuing to work with the Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Dunedin and other partners, Pinellas County included, on the Dunedin Causeway project. And I just wanted to mention that we feel like we've gotten all the funding in place within the next 3 to 5 years for major intersection improvements at Curlew and Alt 19, fully funded, fully design, build program. That's in the draft tentative work program, so I need to kind of hedge that a little bit, but we're confident. And then we've been working with the county to get, and the DOT to get a crosswalk established. There's a state grant that's been approved for fiber optic and cameras to provide advanced traveler information. So that people, can make a decision for themselves how long they want to be in the queue going out to Honeymoon Island State Park. Unfortunately, we had a setback with the Department of Environmental Protection, which removed from their budget the enhancement of the entrance at Honeymoon Island State Park, which is the most popular state park in the system in Florida, and that limited entranceway with one lane for people who have a pass or can pay with cash and another lane for credit cards really can back up quite a ways. There are also some geometric and operational improvements that we would make to facilitate turnarounds and things like that would go with some of these improvements. So what we are going to do is I'm going to coordinate with the city manager in Dunedin to write a letter and request a meeting with their Division of State Parks to just reiterate the importance of the entrance at Honeymoon Island State Park, and that improvement is critical to the other projects that we're funding with state and local funds to be successful. And Mayor Bujalski, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I just know that it is a huge impact of traffic on the causeway. We were hoping it was going to be completed before July, so it's really disappointing. And it also has a huge impact on traffic on Alt 19.
Thank you. The next item on the spotlight is enhancing beach community access as well. And I just wanted to let everybody know that TBARTA has advertised a request for proposals for the aerial Gonda feasibility study. Again, this would be an engineering and planning feasibility analysis of downtown St. Petersburg and Clearwater downtown to Clearwater Beach that would look at the footprint, the operations, the ridership, and how it might be funded and who it might be operated by. All those kind of questions could be answered. And we hope to have a robust response. Ford Pinellas was helpful in writing the scope and will be on the selection panel for that as well. And I believe that closes in March, and there'll be an award in April.
I had a question as well.
It's a request for proposal to bring somebody on board. The attorney for TBARTA felt like that was the only way they could proceed.
Interesting. I was told just yesterday that the whole thing was going to be completed by the end of the summer.
It'll get started probably by the beginning of the summer, if I had to guess. And it'll be about a year-long effort.
To do the study.
The engineering study, correct.
I hope you realize that that is the very same thing that Jeff Brandis is absolutely ballistic about.
I understand. I don't think there was another way to do it without being transparent and following the rules of procurement, but I hear you.
Yeah, everybody hears me, but the problem is the ball keeps rolling the same way it always has. Nothing ever changes. Instead of figuring out how we can get stuff done, we put up all kinds of roadmaps. And I'm not saying it's all about you, Whit, but, and no offense to any of the attorneys, yeah, don't get me going. Okay, thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Commissioner Eggers?
On the 19, or the Dunedin site, the Curlew and Alt 19, that design for that intersection has not been completed?
It has not.
Okay.
This would
Because
be-
they gave us a lot of good ideas, or off, somebody might say off-the-wall ideas, but that's still a work in progress.
It is. It'll be a design build looking at the maybe 3 of the 4 options that they brought forward, and the public will be engaged in that process.
Thank you.
The other one I want to mention is related to legislative earmarks regarding enhancing beach community access, and I'm disappointed to report to you that we've been working very closely with the city of St. Pete Beach on Gulf Boulevard safety improvements. We had a meeting with them last summer. They've articulated a desire to remedy the speeding and mid-block crossings and safety problems that they're observing with bicyclists and pedestrians on Gulf Boulevard through their city. We implored them to apply for a Complete Streets grant or to submit for a priority on our multimodal transportation project priority list. And instead, they went the legislative earmark route and have a legislative request for roadway safety improvements on Gulf Boulevard. And as you all know, if you've heard me, the problem with earmarks is that if that is approved in the budget and it is not vetoed by the governor, that will come out of District 7 transportation projects that we have prioritized. We are getting some stimulus funding. I'm happy to report in FY23, that will only go to projects on our priority list. So had they followed the legitimate route and gotten in the queue and gotten on the list, they might have been eligible for even more money to get something done sooner. We also have earmarks in Oldsmar. We have earmarks in, I believe, Madeira Beach, and earmarks on Indian Rocks Road in the town of Bel Air that have all been submitted through the legislative process. And I am imploring each of you to help me spread the word that earmarks are not a good avenue. They come with serious downsides. There is no legislative set aside for earmarks. There might have been 10 or 15 years ago, but that doesn't exist today, especially in a tight budget year. And if the governor vetoes something that's actively being worked on, the department is prohibited from working on it for a year. So it's kind of a gamble. And we will be reaching out to those legislative members who filed those, but it's coming from the cities, and we've met with the cities. So I'm open to ideas or suggestions about what we can do to reinforce that we have a legitimate process, and there are many avenues for getting funding through this organization. We're not going to fund everybody, and it may not be on the time frame you hope it can be, but it is a good process, and unless you've got local dollars, it's probably the best process. I'm going to move on. The US 19 frontage roads safety study, we had a presentation from the Florida Department of Transportation to our advisory committees on the frontage roads. And it was really interesting. They're looking at accessibility, safety, and also making sure they're moving cars on and off the main line US 19 safely. And I think they've come up with some really good ideas. I think it went over pretty well with our advisory committees. The department will be back here, I believe, in March to give a presentation on the frontage roads. It's a teaser. We won't be asking for any decisions on it, and we will wrap that up into our workshop on US 19 when we have that later in the summer or early fall. But I did want to give you a heads up that the advisory committees are starting to see that, and you're next on the list. And that's all I have for Spotlight. I can just move on into the board workshop summary if you're okay with that, unless there are questions. Okay, the board workshop I thought was very helpful to us. I hope you all felt the same who took time out a couple of Fridays ago to be here. I won't take time in this meeting to summarize all your comments, but I think we heard very clearly that regional partnerships, a focus on jobs and employment, a focus on tourism, resiliency and safety, and funding were all key components that you all are keenly aware of. And we're going to try and craft those statements into some potential spotlight emphasis areas for you to consider. And I think we'll bring that back to you as potentially in March, but more likely in April, where our agenda looks a little lighter. In addition to that, we are going to restart some of the conversations at the county level on transportation funding and with PSTA, just to sort of see where people's minds are at and what messages might resonate, and see how far that discussion needs to go in this coming year. So I will be reaching out over the next few weeks to set those meetings up. In fact, I already have a meeting set up with Brad Miller at PSTA. And in addition to the work session, I think you all got a little bit of an overview of how we operate as an agency. And so we are going to be bringing back information about our budget starting in March. So next month, you'll get a preview of that. It might be a little redundant to what you heard at the workshop, but I think it's good for the full board in a regular meeting to start understanding that. And then we will move forward with the budget process that we need to submit to the county before probably we have a budget information session, I believe, with the administrator in May. So we need to make sure this board is comfortable with what we're submitting prior to May. And that's all I have on the workshop, unless anybody would like to share any thoughts or perspectives. Hope you thought it was valuable.
Yes.
Okay, good. The next item I'll go to is the Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Committee meeting. That was on January 28th. It's a statewide organization. And thank you, Commissioner Seal, for joining us virtually at that meeting. They had a physical quorum present, so everybody was able to participate. I thought there were several good presentations. I had to sit through the staff directors first, so it was a long day of MPO, because that was after our certification review. The most interesting thing on there to me, though, was the presentation that's in your agenda packet on electric vehicles. And we talked about it at the Legislative Committee. The Florida Department of Transportation does have an electric vehicle master plan, and there are two pieces of legislation that have been filed that would address the furtherance of electric vehicles in the state of Florida. One requiring facilities at rest areas along the interstate and state highway system, and another one charging a fee to pay for that infrastructure. Again, that doesn't really address the Transportation Trust Fund issue, which is the subject of the PowerPoint presentation in your packet. If there is an aggressive adoption of electric vehicles in the state of Florida, it could affect our transportation revenues by up to 30% by the year 2035, according to the department's projections. And you can argue that aggressive may be a big step for a state that is lagging the nation in EV adoption. But our legislature has gone pretty whole hog on this. The Biden administration has signaled that they are making an emphasis on electric vehicles, and you have both GM and Ford saying that they're going to have only electric vehicles by 2035 in their fleet. And when the private sector and the public sector put their mind to things, things can happen. So I don't think that aggressive scenario is all that outlandish. And that will affect local revenues in Pinellas County. It will affect our sharing of gas tax revenues with the cities, and it will affect the State Transportation Trust Fund as well. There are some pilot projects around the country that are looking at things like vehicle miles traveled and other mechanisms to provide a more sustainable funding source as an alternative to gas taxes. But there are still privacy issues, there are billing issues, and it's not really a pay-as-you-go system like with the gas tax. And so that's still being worked out in those pilots. And there are also some civil liberties or privacy concerns in some of those cases too. So I'm hopeful that the next federal surface transportation bill will expand this funding issue, because it is a real concern nationwide. And we do have a pretty significant infrastructure backlog, not here in Florida only, but throughout the country. And climate change and resilience just makes that even more pronounced, because the 3 projects we identified in our Resilient Tampa Bay action plan were something like $3 billion worth of improvements to just those handful of state roads in our state or in our county. So this is information, but I thought it was worthwhile sharing with you, and I certainly would encourage you all to think about this as we look at transportation funding here in Pinellas County over the next couple of years. Let's see. I guess next on my list is certification. So every 4 years, we go through a federal highway certification of our operations to make sure that we're following all federal laws and regulations regarding our MPO program. Annually, we do it with the state, so they're pretty closely monitoring us as well. And I thought we had a very good certification review. It culminated with a virtual site visit last Thursday morning. It lasted about 5 hours. Credit to PSTA's Heather Sobush for joining us for the entire meeting. I hope she was doing other things for part of it, but she was able to contribute, and many of our partners contributed in a video that we shared with FHWA about the value that we provide. And I think they found like one thing, because they have to find one thing, which is, in my opinion, very minor, that we will certainly address, but they were very full of praise and congratulating us on a number of initiatives that they identified as noteworthy practices. The next steps on this is that they will come and make a presentation to this board in either July or September with their report findings. And it's an opportunity to have the federal review team let you all know as a board how they think our agency is doing. And most of this largely is driven at the staff level. Unless anybody has any questions about that, that's all I have on the certification update. Okay, moving right along, I'll move into the legislative committee report. And I'll turn it over in a minute to Councilmember Gabbard, but the Legislative Committee met today earlier, and we went through a number of bills that we're tracking consistent with our priorities. I won't spend time going through too much of those. We did touch on the 2 TBARTA bills already, and those are areas of concern. There's also a bill to sunset the regional planning councils, and I think that's also an issue of concern. I helped write a letter on behalf of the American Planning Association opposing that bill. Locally, I think we've got a good dialogue with our legislative delegation members. And our main ask, I think, right now is to keep the work program funding intact as it is adopted as of July 1, 2020, and not defer the transportation projects. There is a bill, or a couple of bills related to the MCORS toll roads that would remove funding from the MCORS program, or at least defer that program until the budget is in a better situation. And hopefully some of that, along with federal stimulus, will help with the transportation work program. Notably, though, earlier today, the board had a discussion about virtual meetings, and our attorney, Chelsea Hardy, provided some broad outlines of potential legislation that would provide more flexibility for boards meeting locally, regionally, in an advisory nature as well, to meet virtually. And Chelsea said she would work on that and bring that information back to this board. And then I had a request of this board that the legislative committee moved on, which was to write 2 letters from me to the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Biden administration. One letter would be to urge them to adopt a Vision Zero approach nationwide and be part of the Vision Zero network, as we are doing here in Pinellas County. And the committee made a recommendation to the full board to authorize me to write that letter, which would be essentially taking Safe Streets Pinellas and making it a national initiative. And then the second letter was to congratulate Secretary Pete Buttigieg and to outline some issues that are important to MPOs, such as more local funding autonomy through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which is a flexible funding program that we can use for a variety of things, and to encourage steps to address the Transportation Trust Fund issue at the federal level to make it more sustainable. Councilmember Gabbard, I'll turn it over to you to see if there's anything from the Legislative Committee you'd like to add that I didn't cover adequately.
I think you pretty much covered it. We have a great committee this year. It's a little bit bigger than before, but that's good because that gives lots of opportunity for input from all across the county. Just some issues that we discussed that we're watching: vacation rentals, the use of wireless communication devices while driving, of course, the Regional Planning Council issue and T-BARDA, that was already discussed, and then urban agriculture. So those are some of the bills that we kind of highlighted during this meeting that are of importance to us and line up with our priority list. But if there's any questions from anybody, I'd be glad to take them. Okay.
So we do need a motion for those two letters. We can either do them separately if we need to, or we can do them at once. And I think we can probably do them at once.
So I'll make a motion to have WIT draft a letter of support for the Vision Zero federal policy. That's what it's called?
One of them. Mm-hmm.
And then also a letter of welcome and congratulations to Secretary Buttigieg.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excuse me, we need to take public comment.
Oh,
on this
thank you,
item.
thank you,
All
Sarah.
action items.
We're just a little bit too fast for you. Sarah, is there anyone in Zoom or in the room who wishes to address the board on this action?
Anyone in Zoom who wishes to address the board, please use the raise hand button in Zoom at this time or press *9 on the phone if you're calling in. We have nobody in Zoom or in the room wishing to speak on this.
Okay, thank you very much. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Terrific. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Is the Ford Pinellas website. So 4 years ago, we merged, well, we didn't merge 4 years ago. We rebranded 4 years ago as Ford Pinellas, and we have a new website that we put out there. And as we went to update that website and add some new bells and whistles and change some things around on it, we discovered that we were incredibly hamstrung by that website design that really precluded us from doing any of the things we wanted to do. So we've kind of been stuck with a design that I think was not nice and fresh when we did it, but it hasn't really kept pace with our needs. So when we hired Amy Elmore, wherever Amy is back there, we asked her to develop a communication strategy, and one of the key things in the communication strategy was to make our website ADA compliant and to provide that flexibility with a new website design. So Amy's going to give us, a test drive. The website will go live. Amy will tell you, because I don't want to put words in her mouth. I've done that before. But she's going to show what it's going to be like and then let you know when it'll be live.
Thanks so much. And Sarah, if you don't mind scrolling out to just about 80% on your view so they can see the full thing. Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is our brand new website, and really it's got a very sleek, nice, modern design that is not only very eye-catching, but also extremely informative. The goal of the website was to reach both our citizens and our local partners and provide them the information of not only who is Forward Pinellas and what kind of things are we doing, but why it should be important to them and how we can help our community. So right up at the top, you'll see we have our blogs that are updated and nice and fresh. As we scroll down a bit, you'll see a little bit about us. You'll see some familiar faces. And then you'll also see our plans, programs, and projects, kind of what we're doing within our community. You'll also see the next part is our Forward Pinellas by the numbers. Those are some statistics, and those will be updated as we get new numbers that link us to some of our main focuses here, such as Safe Streets, the Pinellas Trail, and Advantage Pinellas. Next, you're going to see some upcoming events. Maybe it's a Forward Pinellas board meeting like today, or an advisory committee meeting. When you click into those events, you don't have to click Sarah, but when you do click into those events, you'll be able to get that specific meeting's agenda, any presentations, and any information about the location, time, that sort of thing for that specific meeting. And as we scroll down, you'll also see our spotlight section, which of course you guys are very familiar with, but for those just in case who are listening that aren't, these are our emphasis areas that we are really focusing on as Forward Pinellas, such as enhancing beach access, the Gateway Master Plan, and a vision for US 19. And this is where it will be updated once we kind of update those spotlight emphasis areas. Next, you're going to see in our community section, which is, as a communications person, one of my favorite sections, because this is going to be some of the latest up-to-date information, such as our news releases or announcements, and really things that we're doing within our community to get involved and make a real big impact, which I love. Next, this is the way that other people can get involved with Forward Pinellas and get involved with helping us make these decisions within their community, such as attending a meeting or following us on social media. They can also easily and quickly subscribe to our newsletter and blog. Next, we have what we're listening to, which is an all-time favorite, I think, among quite a few people. It's just something fun and unique to add to the website that's kind of interactive. And then as we scroll down, this section is really especially for our partners. And here you can find some really quick links, some of the most used links by our partners and citizens very, very quickly. Without having to search through the entire website for some of those common tools. So this will go live on this weekend. We'll push out a news release about it as well as some information about it through email on Monday. And we would love if you guys can share this, let other people know what's going on, that we've got this new refreshed look to our website. And I'm also happy to schedule a one-on-one meeting with anyone who's interested to really do a deep dive into this website more than we were able to do in these 5 minutes here. With that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. The website looks beautiful.
Great.
What I really like about it are the pictures of people. It's just a simple thing to do, but it just communicates like a different interest and energy level to the work that we do, because it is first and foremost about people and quality of life. So I really like that, and it's really helpful at the bottom to be able to have quick access to some of the reports that we reference a lot. Do we have any other comments from our board members? All right, we're looking forward. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I agree with what you said, but it sure is a lot more dynamic than the one we have now. Because I've got that one up, and I mean, you can't even, you just have basically one, plate to look at. We got a little buttons, but yours, you just keep on going and scroll and get all kinds of things, which is nice.
Good, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, this all stemmed from trying to put a dashboard on that website, and we could not get it to work. And it just might as well blow it up and start again. So that's kind of what we did. And Amy had a couple of focus groups among our partners, asking them what do they use on the website, what do they value. So it wasn't just us thinking what might work. I think it was really well informed by people like Cheryl Stacks and some of our partners at the local government level who said, well, this is what I use the website for, and I want to make sure this is easy. And
Absolutely. We had 3 different focus groups, some with our partners and some with citizens. So that was extremely informative to make sure that we were really hitting those audiences.
Great. Commissioner Smith?
I mean, I really like the website. What I really liked on there also is the plans and projects. As someone who kind of wants to find that really quick, and sometimes they put it into documents too far. I think having that right there, large, and for a citizen who wants to see a project or a local government or agency to find it quick, I really like that. So thank you so much. And I look forward to sitting down with you and getting more into this.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I did forget to mention this also has the capability to translate into different languages, making sure that we're reaching some of those underserved audiences, and it's ADA accessible.
one follow-up. When we launch this, are we also kind of giving the heads up to the cities so they can share it onto their social media networks so we can get the word out further?
Absolutely. Whenever we push out the news release on Monday, I'll make sure to share those with all of the PIOs throughout the county.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great work.
Thanks.
And Whit, you wanted to highlight some of the informational items in our packet?
I do. These are mostly the same items that we always put in the back of your packet, just for information, but there are a couple things. Amy has a communication report, so she does a nice job each month of summarizing, what's working, what's, how we're getting out there in the community. But I want to draw your attention particularly to item 8H, which is the quarterly report on my approvals. We have an internal policy of what I can approve and what has to come to the board, and this lists all the things that I've done under my authority as the executive director. So just want to be transparent with all of those things. And there was I don't know if it was a law, but an interpretation that was made by the Department of Transportation that I also needed to include my hours charged and any leave that I take and things like that. So that's also in there. I also want to present item 8I to you, which is the countywide plan rule interpretations annual update. And every year we do this. And what it is a reflection of all the questions and interpretations that we get, requests that we get from local governments about what's in the countywide plan and how does that apply to outdoor storage, how does that apply to a conversion of a use to something, how would we consider these factors, and I think our staff has done a really nice job summarizing all those requests for the year, so just wanted to bring your attention to that. In terms of upcoming events, we're excited about Bike Your City, and I don't know that we have Angela on the line. We do have a minute if Angela is available to talk about what she has planned for March, but it is Florida Bicycle Month, and we like to feature a Bike Your City. It's going to be a little bit different this year. We had so much fun and success with the virtual Bike Your City last October. We're going to do that again. I don't know that we have Angela on the line. So just.
She's not on the line.
Okay. So we'll push this out, but this year it's going to be Bike Your Own City. So instead of coming to Safety Harbor and doing a scavenger hunt, we're going to set it up where it's around the whole county, and you can do that in your own community. And we're working with a lot of the local staff to have cool landmarks identified. And we had over 500 people and over 1,500 selfies submitted in October for the virtual one, and I just think that's a best practice. So we're excited to see what this one might do. We have the MPOAC Weekend Institute for elected officials in March. Also the Tampa Bay TMA Leadership Group on March 12th, where I'm sure the T-BARTA legislation will come up for discussion. And we are putting together that agenda right now. One of the things we will be featuring is some discussion about regional express transit, and that's where T-BARTA and the MPOs intersect. So would encourage you all to join that if you're interested. We do have 3 designated members, but everybody can be an alternate, and you're more than welcome. We're still determining if that's a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting. If it's in person, it will be in Pasco County. And Wesley Chapel. If it's a virtual meeting, it'll be at your laptop. And then we have postponed our Waterborne Transportation Committee to April 2nd. The reason for that is PSTA needed a little bit more time for their consultants to come up with capital costs and operating costs and to develop ridership estimates. And we wanted to make sure we had new information that we were bringing to the group and not just meeting again because we had set a date to meet. So we will be ready for April 2nd for that discussion.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to remind especially all of our new board members that if you have any interest in registering for the MPOAC Weekend Institute, that is an expense that's covered by our agency, and you can get a hold of me, and I will properly get you registered for that virtual event. I know that in the past, members find it very informative, and it is covered by our agency if you wish to attend.
Yes. A show of hands of board members who have attended that. Well, I can tell you, yeah, there's 4 of us. I can tell you it's very helpful, and I highly recommend it. It's a really great way to get background on the MPOAC.
They'll give you a really helpful cheat sheet of all of the acronyms, and that will be your lifesaver for like the first 2 years. So that's my plug.
Did I use any acronyms today?
Okay, any other final comments or questions before we end our meeting today? Well, thank you very much, everyone who gave presentations and everyone who's here today. Thank you for all you do for Forward Pinellas, and we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.